you're in Ocala, Florida, and we were discussing in the pre-show.
Iced coffee, bitches. I got it all right here.
But Ocala has seasons, and that's just unusual for Florida. But hey, the Panhandle's cold too. I've been down there many a time in January, February, and March, especially March spring break. It was who would be tough enough to take the dare to get in the Gulf in mid-March because it can get cold.
Not I.
Yeah.
Why?
I love it. It's cold, and but I
Show
love
me
people
your
go
cookies. That's what I
Yeah.
say. Subscribe to our channel.
That's right. How do you do it, Brendan? You take
You
this.
just go to that little phone of yours. You open the camera app. It will automatically, when you put it up to the QR code, it'll say, "Would you like to go to this link?" And you say, "Yes, please," and then it will take you to the channel, and it will automatically ask you if you want to subscribe. And then you say yes, and then you get notifications every day when we're live.
That's right. And send in your comments during the show. Like your comments, whether you agree or disagree with us. All in good taste, though, because I can guarantee you one thing. Brendan will disinvite you. You know what? You know what you'll be treated like if you act ugly? Bevo. Think about how Bevo's been treated.
Yeah, poor Bevo. And we will. There's no room on our sidelines for you, pal. I'll tell you that right now. Hey!
He's coming.
Hey, now.
He's coming to the swamp next year. Hey, got a great show today. Johnny Ballpark Franks, one of the best. The national picture out of Nashville on college football and basketball and all sports. Does a great show Monday nights in Huntsville on the UMP, 5 to 7 p.m. Over 14,000 interviewed. And he's interviewed more Heisman Trophy winners than any living American ever. It's amazing.
He's downright interesting and kind of looks like a movie star to me.
Well, he's a cool cat, as Tom Jones would say.
Oh yeah, what's up, my brother?
He's a buccaneer, a swashbuckler.
Yeah, there we are.
Here we go.
Happy New Year and good morning to everybody.
Merry New Year to you. Hey, Happy New Year. It's a great day. Johnny Ballpark Franks. And we're also going to be joined by Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, and Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, in the second half hour of the show. And folks, thanks to all of our sponsors. We love them. Great folks out there like LandersFord.com, LandersFordMemphis.com, Winter Timber Outdoors, Hewlett and Dunn, Exo Armor, Rumble Boxing, Web-Footed Kennels in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Got a lot of sponsors. We will work harder than anybody to sell your goods and services. Johnny, college football still going. We got games Thursday night. We got them Friday night. And we're going to do a cool show on here Thursday. A combination of sidelines with Rob and Brendan.
Well,
and
how cool can it be if I'm not going to be a part of it?
I know, man. It's going to be a kind of a pregame show.
I feel that. I think. Yeah, I feel like you should be a part of it.
Yeah, you should. I mean, maybe you'll be our representative. I'm telling you, hey, Johnny. Nice. You know what's cool? We got college football season until January 20th, and then it'll be maybe February 10th or 15th. Somebody in the SEC will start spring practice, so we won't go long. We won't have withdrawals very long, Johnny. Take the ball and run with it. How are you?
I am great. I mean, boy, 12-team playoff, and we just knew we were going to get all these upsets, and we're going to have the little guys, the Boise State's alive, Arizona State alive. The Final Four are your blue bloods. I mean, you get Ohio State, Penn State, you get Texas, you get Notre Dame. Are we surprised?
No.
Are you surprised that the top 4 seeds are gone? I mean, not one of the 4 seeds, top 4 seeds. They're all gone.
I am. Actually, I am.
You know, when I look back at this year, you know, this will probably be the first year for Ohio State, which I don't predict them to win this week. But if they do keep playing like they did in the first 2 games, it'll be I mean, you bought yourself a national championship. I mean, I'm not being facetious here. I mean, they have, I mean, it's out there. We know how much money they spent. They went out and bought themselves a national championship. So, hurrah. Is this where we want to celebrate college? You know, like, I was in such a mood over the weekend because of thinking along those lines, because I love college football histrry. I actually went back and watched We Are Marshall. And one of the things you mentioned, all the guests, and one of the things that I really love the fact that I did then and have done over the years. I got curious and I reached out to the real Red Dawson. And now we became friends over the years, and he's been on my show numerous times. He was the coach who went on the recruiting trip, did not get on the plane, and so obviously he survived because he was not on the plane. And he only coached that 1 year when they brought the program back in '71. It's individuals like that that get me still excited about college football. Or like yesterday, I had Chris Good, the Good brothers,
Yep.
the cousin Antonio Langham, who just got into the College Football Hall of Fame from a little small area
Creek.
between Decatur, Town Creek, right between Decatur and Huntsville. And, the fact that he just got named the new head coach for Miles College in the Birmingham area. And here's a guy that played, he didn't get a chance to play much at Alabama, mainly because of an injury. He was drafted in the 10th round. He ended up starting primarily for 7 years as a defensive back for the Indianapolis Colts. Those are kind of stories that I still like and resonate. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about when I look back at this year. I mean, I'm just not happy with the whole where the rules are with name, image, and likeness and the transfer portal. There has to be some kind of change because this is not good. I mean, the fact that you get players entering the transfer portal, but then they find themselves out because I guess somebody found some extra money. I don't know. We always joked years ago. I used to joke about the transfer portal being a Motel 6 somewhere in Omaha, Nebraska, where everybody's just hanging out. Now with 5,000 plus, you need an arena somewhere to be able to house all these individuals who think there's greener pastures somewhere else.
Well, they're not going to leave the light on for you, I guess, anymore.
Yeah, Electricville right there.
Johnny, you fascinate me because of your love of the history of the game, especially the SEC. I've been doing my own journalistic thumbing around lately because I feel like a lot of these old stories of pre-NIL that we never really heard officially are now sort of like released CIA documents from the 60s, like who really shot JFK, right? So I think that, I would be interested in talking to someone like you because I think if you could go around and you could get these stories, you could make a pretty awesome documentary. Because I've been curating mine, Johnny. So maybe we should combine notes someday.
The biggest difference is this. And look, he's the one that went public with it. So remember Punt Bama Punt in 1972.
December 2nd. Yeah.
Bill Newton was the Auburn linebacker who blocked the 2 punts that led to the 2 returns for a touchdown. Bill, and we've become friends over the years. He's never brought this up until my last visit with Bill right before this year's Iron Bowl. And he brought up the fact that he had a small loan that he had to repay. And Shug Jordan helped him repay it. Basically took care of it. But the big difference for me is the fact Bill Newton was going to Auburn no matter what. It wasn't the fact that Coach Jordan helped Bill Newton in that situation. And yes, it's against the rules of the NCAA. It would not have been allowed. They would have had to give back that, forfeit the W and all the above. But I'm okay with that because I know what it's like as a college student back in the day. Even I was working full time in radio as a top 40 DJ, Governor Johnny at the night desk. But at the same time, you still need a little help here and there, right?
What's your radio voice, Johnny, for that? It's like, welcome to the night desk.
I was never a yucker. All right. I was never that guy. A yucker is like, okay, we got the top 40 hits coming up. All right. Well, you're listening to Z103. That's
we had a
ABC.
Hey, we had a DJ in Memphis.
WNBC.
Johnny, we had one in Memphis when we were in high school on Rock 103, 102.7 in Memphis. His radio name was Redbeard, and he sounded like he was hung like a mule, and he got on there like I mean, you get a massage when you listen to the radio
Can
with
you
that
say
guy's
that
voice.
Look, we can say whatever we want.
I
It's our
guess.
show, baby.
Look, the point, but
Our show.
here's the point. Yeah, I'm with you, and Brendan's going down that direction too. I'm a college. Our motto on this show, thanks to John Hearn and Maury Gaston, history, traditions, and heroes. And I love the game and the people. I question. I mean, look at it now. When you're putting if we're going to go by the Supreme Court, what they mean, you cannot deny someone the right to earn a living. Happiness. In the pursuit of happiness, you can't stop that. Well, the
Wait a
name,
second.
image, and likeness.
Wait. You just brought up Supreme Court, and how funny is it that a board like that, who are taking gifts from rich people and are now going to be the governing body and deciding what student athletes can take? I really can't wait for Clarence Thomas to weigh in on that subject.
Well, we're just going to see a union, right? I mean, the players will just become a union, and
I hope not.
Well, that's what they're already doing it. They're already doing it. It's already happening.
Because here's the thing, and how sad is it now? We're to the point where there's lawsuits. I mean, Florida State men's basketball, where players were promised things, they didn't get them. Or how about UNLV, top 25 team, 3-0, and their starting quarterback leaves and transfers out because he was not given the $100,000 that he was promised. It's like, well, the coach didn't make it. It was one of the. I mean, that's where we are. Can I just say I am so glad I am not in college athletics today. It was crazy enough when I worked in college athletics in the 80s and throughout the 90s. Today, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't put up with all of this.
Well, I couldn't. I would go crazy. We're the same age, Johnny. So the way I see it, I have 3 kids plus Mallory 4, 2 boys, 2 girls. I don't really give a damn if they like me, but they better respect me. And because I'm hard, but I'm fair. If adults, the NCAA would take a leadership. See, the college kids are taking advantage of it because they see the weakness. There's a void of leadership. There's no leadership. So they're going to get everything they can. But you get a firm, strong leader of the NCAA, we could turn the tide. Right now, I think one of the biggest lies that we are seeing are posted figures of what schools have in their NIL collectives. Because if they post what they really have, they'll be paying kids ridiculous amounts of money. But I question, how many times can you keep going back to these donors and ask them for money? Because if you're going 8-4 and 9-3, they're going to say, screw that, man. In my business, you fire the money managers. You get rid of them. If they sequentially have losses quarter after quarter, they're gone. That's how it works. You have to be careful of, capital gains and tax consequences and all. But I think where we're going is toward. I don't think we want them to be employees of the university, Johnny. I just want to get to where we're talking about football again, and how much these kids love the schools that they play for, like the fans do. If you want to just go for the money, what they ought to do, let them go straight to the damn NFL and quit, soiling our college football experience. I'm tired of it. These universities don't exist to provide these people with this platform. They're also there to educate 98.5% of the people.
But Rob, you're being naive in the sense that, I go back to the reason why SMU got the death penalty. Even when the school was trying to do the right thing, the booster says, hey, we made promises. And only thing they cared about was, I'm sure that when they were hanging around the water cooler, these money men we're talking about, first of all, I don't think they ever hung around a water cooler. No. That would be somebody else's job to hang around the water cooler for them.
Unless they own the Culligan Company.
I guess.
Hung out by the water cooler. But not sponsored by Culligan, by the way. No affiliation.
I mean, look, players have been bought for the last 100 years.
Yes.
I mean, if you know college football history, this has been the reason Alabama and Auburn did not play each other was because of, money. Yeah, per diem. It's like they wanted to pay. Auburn wanted to pay a certain amount. The reason why, for years, the teams in the Ivy League dominated the national championship picture. The reason why they stopped, because they didn't want to get into the scholarship game. They saw where it was going. They said, hey, we're good. We want to protect academics. We'll still have students who want to play in sports, but we're not doing the scholarship game. We're not going to be playing that game. The first Heisman Trophy winner came from a school in the Big Ten. Was it Michigan? Was it Ohio State? No, it was Chicago. And they did away with their program. So when you start looking back at the history of college football, we've had these issues forever. Even when I got into college athletics in the 80s, and you talk about the NCAA like it's some kind of something from Mars. These universities are the NCAA. They're the ones, they're on the committees. You know, you have the ADs and the presidents on these various committees in the NCAA. The reason why the NCAA is, you call it weak, first of all, the middle management, the groups that actually ran things, they disbanded and went to universities to work, to find the loopholes, to help these universities to get up to that gray line, not pass it, and still be able to take full advantage of all the rules. And when you started losing lawsuits, remember when the NCAA went after Penn State and Joe Paterno and all that, they lose. They try to get North Carolina, and North Carolina certainly was cheating, but it got to the point where when you start getting the court systems involved and you start losing, my thing is this: no one is forcing any of these universities to be a part of the NCAA. Not one university has their hand behind their backs. So they all agree to these rules. And this is where I think the judicial system in our country is overstepping their bounds. They never should have got involved, because this was not a thing that was forced upon any university from the West Coast to the East Coast. They all agreed to these rules. It's just like, for example, when we had the situation, the scandal in Major League Baseball, and they assigned a commissioner where his rule, no matter what he says, goes, and that was it. You know, this is the way the NCAA really should be. Unfortunately, because of when the courts get involved, they say, oh, that's too far. You can't do this. You can't do that. Then again, if these presidents and these ADs and these conference commissioners had done the right things in the 80s, the 90s, the first decade of the 2000s, the second decade of the 2000s. And when I say the right thing, making sure these student athletes aren't broke, making sure that they have enough money to, get their things they need for their toiletries, being able to take their girlfriend out for a pizza. And it's true, having to walk by the student union and see a jersey, although their name is not on it, but they see a number which represents them. And yet there could be the poorest students on campus because they weren't allowed to work because of NCAA rules, trying to avoid the misconception, because the reason why there were rules in place is because you had student athletes with jobs that they didn't really have to work a job. It was just a way to funnel money to them. Correct. And because of those rules being broken, when I got into college athletics, the rule book was something like this. By the time I got out, it was more like that. It was like a old phone book. And remember phone books? It was like that from, say, New York City. Because everybody kept finding ways to break these rules. And so you had to add a 1 point A, 1 point B, and then you had to have a little addendum to that. And it's because people lived in that gray area and they tried to and they found ways to still break the rules legally.
All right, look, the line of demarcation, you referred to this a minute ago, the Ivy League schools. Okay, college football started November 6th, 1869.
Oh, we are going down the rabbit hole because I've just been down this rabbit hole. I agree.
But I'm saying, Johnny, it's interesting on the Ivy League.
Nice.
When you talk about how Penn and Princeton, Penn and Yale and Harvard won so many national championships, and then suddenly it stopped. So the NCAA was founded around 1906 by Teddy Roosevelt. Shortly after, in 1906, 19 college football players died on the field. The game was violent. We damn near lost it in Georgia. But the legislature and the mother of the Georgia player who died said, that's not what my son wanted. They kept it going. But This is a great point. I know guys, y'all both know guys that have played at many, many different schools, and they've told me I know them, what they got. I mean, if you think that people hadn't paying players since the beginning of college football, you're really naive and you're a fool. I think what you say about Jay Berwanger when he won the Heisman Trophy at the University of Chicago, what was that, 1935?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was the year before Associated Press came out with their first poll, 1936. If fans would understand what we're seeing now with conference expansion has been going on for over 100 years. 100 years ago, the Southern Conference had 23 members. And Johnny, you're one of the few people, and Brendan does, I know because he's grown up, with Buddy, but both of them know this stuff. The history of the game is just repeating itself. But you're right. My attorney, Jack Turner, who we have on the show a lot, says the only rules or laws that the colleges that are members of the NCAA have to be concerned with are antitrust laws. Remember, the NCAA has no subpoena power. You're supposed to voluntarily comply when they ask for information in an investigation.
That's why they love it when the FBI gets involved in investigations.
Yeah.
Remember when they went after the basketball coaches? The NCAA loved that because they did not have that power. And they said, yeah, come on, FBI, do your thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
that's a great.
There's no oversight, right, for the NCAA, right?
No.
Even the police, force has oversight. Like, that's, I think, some of the major problems is that when you start dividing out conferences, when conferences started doing TV and doing ESPN starts signing $1 billion deals, and all of that really was like that last, the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Like I felt like it was we all knew it was a house of cards. We just didn't know how that house of cards was going to tumble.
Good point.
Right.
Look, we just got through. We're down to 3 bowl games, right? Why do we have so many bowl games? Everybody says why. I mean, look, you had like 3,000 or 4,000 people at the Bahamas Bowl. You know why? That is a cheap amount to pay for 3+ hours of programming. And that's why ESPN does it. ESPN controls most of these little small bowl games that you see, and you go, why is that on? No one cares. Because it's a cheap way of programming that you get on television.
Get paid, right, Johnny?
The schools get paid. Everybody gets paid.
Everyone gets paid, and it's a good deal. But it's so weird for me, Rob, to like go to a Florida game, the last game of the year, and the upper bowl's not even full. Like Florida feels, you go to the Swamp, it's packed, right? You go to the bowl game, and the upper bowl is not even full.
I agree.
And that's a Florida game. That's an hour and a half away. So how do we fix that? Because you can pack it against Sisters of the Blind and Poor, on a Saturday at noon in the Swamp, but you can't pack it down at the Fiesta Bowl or whatever, Outback Bowl, how we say in Florida, where your team, you have a huge following there. What is the disconnect?
Well, there's a big problem that's not being addressed, and it's out there. This is the weird thing about the NCAA. I mean, you're talking about higher education, right? And I've always said this, and I haven't said it in a jokingly fashion. It's true. Some of the dumbest people I've ever been around, university presidents. And what I mean by that is just lack of common sense on so many levels. And, it's like they ignore a problem until it becomes a mountain to the point where, we have no answers, just like we're seeing now with name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal. But the fact that there's so many college students that are not going to college football games or to sporting events in general. Those are your future season ticket holders. I mean, without them, how are some of these universities are going to survive? See, I think we're going to lose so many of these universities as far as these teams competing at this level. I think we'll have the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots will be just like we saw with decisions made by Chicago and the Ivy League, where you have students who will also be participating in sports, but there'll be no scholarships for that. There might be some money for name, image, and likeness. And then you'll have the ones where eventually they're not even students. They'll just be representing that university. Technically, I guess an employee per se.
That will
But
be the ruin
and I
of
think
college
that's the
football.
direction. And I think that's the direction we're heading. And it's sad, but this is where we are right now. And no one thought we would be where we are today this quickly. So
Well,
I'm imagining this in 10 years. So
if you play
in
kick the can,
2035.
yeah, if you play kick the can, this is what you get. If you've got a problem with roaches or mice in your house and you're just hitting them in the kitchen and you don't go to the colony, nothing changes.
Get
If
one of
they
my
would've-
dogs. They'll come out. There are barn dogs. They'll come get
Yeah,
those roaches.
or Jack Russell Terriers. But here's the deal: if 20 years ago, as you referenced, if the NCAA would have addressed long-term health care needs, basic benefits, and a simple cursory pension plan for student athletes, revenue sharing, that would have solved this problem. But they kept pushing it away until it was such a problem that you got the Supreme Court involved. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's in our Constitution. It's guaranteed. They used that. But I remember being in college and being in the bookstore and saying, look at that Bo Jackson jersey. Man, look at all these kids wearing 34, including me. I've still got my Pat Sullivan jersey that he signed for me from 1970. I still have that thing. And I think about as a kid, I told Buddy and Brendan this going into Cecil's. I still remember the front page of Athlon's college football preseason with Wes Chandler with the cropped jersey, Chris Collinsworth out of Titusville Astronaut High School, Wilbur Marshall, Titusville Astronaut High School. What I wonder now is, and a friend of mine in Fort Lauderdale asked me this, he goes, watches the show every day. He said, can you name the 2 or 3 deep depth chart for Auburn now? Or can you name it for Alabama? That's where we're going to lose fans, Johnny. But I will say this, the students at Auburn and Alabama, they're going to the games, but they might leave early. But Auburn was smart. They put a policy in that said, if you leave early in the student section, you will lose your block seating. So stay the full 60. That's always been my motto.
This is what I put this font on the screen, just doing some research. These are like censuses, so obviously they're going to, be a little bit, they don't only count them up, but it said 2022, 39% of 18 to 24-year-olds were enrolled in college, which is lower than 41% rate in 2012. And that is continuously dropping like a stone. Johnny, Rob, do you think that might have something to do with it? Because the value of a scholarship doesn't mean as much as it used to say, hey, you're going to get this, because the kids don't think that it's valuable, right? They don't hold value because they're like, well, my buddy didn't go to school and so didn't go to school, but I grew up. You went to college. That's what you did. You went to college, you pulled for your team, you joined fraternity. That's what you did. So now that's sort of different. I feel that a lot of kids are like, well, I'm not going to get to school and have the grades anyways. Do you think that has anything to do with it, Johnny?
I mean, look, we have jealousies in locker rooms. When you see, like, for example, the lineman blocking for the quarterback and they see the quarterback making the big bucks and the lineman not so much, not unless you're an All-American, for example. And I think these same jealousies are on the campuses as well as just as far as regular students. The students see all of this attention for these student athletes, or maybe the top academic students that are on campus. So there's jealousies that what they see the rewards. They don't see the hard work that people put into getting from point A to point Z. They just see point Z and they say, hey, I should be there. And they don't want to make sacrifices and put in the work to get there. And so because of it, unlike when you start seeing these players making the kind of money, when you're seeing a quarterback drive up in a Lamborghini, and it's like, okay, enough of that, and so it turns them off. They're not regular students anymore. They're not the students like when I went to college. You'll be in a class with a starting offensive lineman or the starting quarterback, or you're in a fraternity with these guys. And so that's the big difference. And you wanted to support them. You would go the volleyball matches and see Gabriel Reese if you were at Florida State. You would go to so everybody would support each other. But when you start doing separation, I remember when Vanderbilt did away with their quote unquote director of athletics. They want
Yes.
everybody to be. It's like stop,
Yeah.
just stop, because a student athlete is not the same as the regular student who does nothing except go to classes. There's
Yeah.
nothing about a student who goes to classes, doesn't get involved in anything, doesn't excel anything, going through the motions, and comparing that to a student athlete. There's no comparison except, yes, they both take classes, but that's where that, the comparison ends.
Yeah.
Once again, it's the smartest people doing the dumbest things I've ever heard of.
Yeah, and let me say something real quick about one of our sponsors here from Athens, Alabama, right there between Decatur and Huntsville on Highway 72. Awesome store. Check out, take a picture of that QR code, put them on your to-do list to call Winter Timber today. All the shooting sports from dove season, duck season, deer season, quail, grouse, turkey, deer stands, the gear. They're a big Sitka dealer. Dixie decoys. They've got everything from head to toe, trail shoes. They've got gear for Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn, polos, outdoor gear, hats, vests. I tell you, these Dixie decoys, they make some great looking stuff. They've got the bags, the gear, over 2,000 shotguns, rifles, and handguns in the store. They're going to grow in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. Go on that website. They got some cool logo gear, Winter Timber, hoodies, T-shirts, hats. They sell Migra ammunition. I've been using Migra this year. Thank you to the great people at Migra. That stuff works. You hit them, you fold them. Can't use lead. It's illegal. But this is the closest thing I've ever seen. Get your Migra ammunition and all at Winter Timber Outdoors. They are open every day of the week. Johnny, I'll throw something in here to you and Brendan. 2007, 2008, 2009, the bond market and the stock market crashed simultaneously. We had a huge contraction. High yield funds were obliterated off the face of the earth. I can tell you from knowing someone who managed about $5 billion in that sector. The birth rate went off a cliff, okay? So 2026, 2027, 2028, colleges are going to be scrambling for the students that are out there. But also, you've got like John Malmo, the smartest advertising guy I've ever known, Archer Malmo Advertising in Memphis, More Tech. They have a trust fund. If you want to be a plumber, HVAC guy, go there, 2 years, get your degree. If you can communicate, why go to college and incur all that debt? So there's a lot of things that are happening right now, but I know that my kids love college football. They go to a game, they don't leave until it's over. In the last few years, at least at Auburn, there have been some serious beatdowns, and we don't ever leave early. People that leave a game early because they want to beat the traffic shouldn't go to begin with. They're sitting there with their arms folded, all scowling. Who needs people like that in the stands? Screw them. I mean, either you're all in or you shouldn't be in. Johnny, I'm with Brendan. You should do a documentary, a video. And I know a great documentarian. He's right here. Yeah, I know the guy. He's right here. Johnny, this would be so cool. He's made I'm telling you, I ain't saying it just to say it. He's talent on another level.
I'll tell you, and this is coming from somebody who grew up an Alabama fan. This is somebody who had the old picture tube on their television. And I'm going to take you back to that 10-year-old version of Johnny Ballpark Franks. And at halftime of a game to decide the national championship, New Year's Eve between Alabama and Notre Dame, the picture tube decides to go out. And so the second half, I listened to that national title game on the radio, and my heart was broken when Notre Dame backed up deep in their territory, completes that pass, keeps the drive alive. They run out the clock. I bring that up because there's not an Alabama person alive back then who would say they'd be pulling for Notre Dame this week or this year or anytime, except I'm pulling for Notre Dame this week. And you know why I'm pulling for Notre Dame? Because to me, when we think about these four teams that are playing still, Texas, Penn State, Ohio State, and Notre Dame of these four is the closest thing you're going to get as far as student athletes playing for the school.
Yeah.
and not for the money.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's and we're bringing Yancy Porter, but I hi Yancy, but I think what you're saying, Johnny, it to me, and I guess I see things sort of, from that 30,000-foot perspective, and I got to do the whole Occam razor on it, right? Because I got to not think about Florida. But I feel like we can go to these independent teams. If we have an independent school, then what happens if we have an independent team? I just see us. I see this like sort of expanding because we don't cap it out and say this is the rules, then it opens us up to so many other people in this time to say, well, wait, we should be heard, and we should be heard, and we should be heard, and we should have a piece of the pie. Well, you shouldn't, because history should dictate itself. You are not out of the SEC. You don't have a lot of these, years in class, traditions in a sense, and you can't just be a new school and like try. That's where I think we're caught in a little bit. It's like the past is beating the old, and the old doesn't know how to deal it.
But look at this, like we're looking at right now, and I'd love to get Yancey's opinion on this. Everybody is not going to watch all the bowl games, right? But they see the bowl standings, and they see the SEC is this, this conference is that, but they didn't break down the fact that look at this team. They didn't have their All-American receiver. This group, they don't have any receivers. They're playing defensive backs at wide receiver. Only thing they see is the wins and the losses.
Yeah.
And they're not breaking down what the situations were. They're like, what is the national tone about the SEC from the West Coast to the East Coast? The SEC wasn't as good as we thought they were. Yeah. They're down. The reality is, how many people either have already transferred out, are sitting out, or a combination of both? Because I know Alabama, I think, Rob, they would have probably tried you out at wide receiver because the whole wide receiver room left.
Yeah, it is. It's Yancy. Jump in here. Yancy Porter, folks, catch him Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56, WHBQ in Memphis, and all over Super Talk, Mississippi. Great show. The guy knows Ole Miss. He digs. He gets the stories. He lives in Oxford, native Mississippian. Folks, you won't find anybody anywhere that knows the Rebels. He covers them like kudzu and cotton. The man from the Tallahatchie Grill at the bar for the gumbo on Tuesday. So get the gumbo back. But anyway, folks, Yancy, how you doing? Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to y'all, too. Really. Good seeing all y'all. Love the cowboy hat, by the way. Jealous of it.
You lit done on the square.
Yancy, you didn't get the memo. You didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
No, I think a few of my friends would love to see me in a cowboy hat, though. That'd be fun to wear one day. But yeah, it's interesting comments and conversations you're having, because I just had this with a couple of my friends here in Oxford just yesterday, because they are convinced that the SEC was overrated because of the postseason records. And I just went through this. I mean, it's so funny you're having this conversation, because that I've been arguing that the playoff selection is a woke system. It's inclusion and wants everybody to be included, right? We got to make sure we have a fifth team, the top five power not four, but five, but conference champions are included, right? We all know that means that they're going to get a G5 program in there. We all know that the selections were based off of records and not how good the team actually was. And so now even these guys are huge Ole Miss fans. And they're convinced that the SEC was maybe even the third best conference this year because of the bowl game records, and that they did have it right, that Indiana's and Boise State's and SMU's and all these teams should have been included in the playoffs because the SEC was simply down. Just look at the bowl records. So it's funny how you can spin things politically, sports wise, economic wise. People can just be snowballed, and these are very intelligent people. And we just had this conversation, so I feel like this is deja vu. I just woke up from yesterday's conversation with these people.
Yancy, look at Ole Miss. Look at Ole Miss this year. The fans are pissed off with a 10-3 record. And you said it best that this season was horrible, but that's where Ole Miss is now with all this stuff going on. So hey, we got Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider on here, Johnny Ballpark, Franks, Brendan, me, Yancy. Great time to get some smart people's input. Rodney, tell us what you thought about year one under Kalen DeBoer. I mean, first time since 2007, Alabama hasn't won 10 games or more. I don't think that's a record that no one's ever done that before. Florida State did it for 14 straight years, but I don't think anyone's ever gone more than 14 until Alabama did it. So give us read the room in Tuscaloosa among the Alabama faithful. And I'm with Yancy. I think a lot of these guys just don't give a damn about the bowls, but you can never use the bowls as a barometer of conference strength or weakness. Rodney?
Yeah, so you're asking about Alabama, or are you asking about the bowls?
Yeah, just Alabama, and just your thoughts on what's going on after year one, and also on the bowls. Shed some of the light in your head.
Yeah. No, look, first year, major transition. We've talked about that. There were some mistakes. There's probably no doubt about that. But I mean, this was it's a tough task. I mean, Kalen DeBoer had a lot on his plate to handle when he first got here. I mean, you're replacing the greatest of all time, they say. Certainly one of the. And I mean, it's a tough transition. He did a fantastic job coming in, holding the roster together when he first got here a year ago. It's almost been a year ago today, January the 10th. Well, a year ago today, monumental day in history, when Nick Saban stepped down. But no, I mean, I think everything leading up to the season, honestly, I would give Kalen DeBoer an A, or maybe even an A+ for the way he handled everything. Now, once the season started, you knew there were going to be pitfalls, adversity. There always is, no matter what, but especially in a transition year like this. And you have to consider, he kind of has to play the hand he was dealt. He was dealt a quarterback that does not fit what he wants to do. Talented guy, but they just didn't fit. So he kind of had to show the flexibility to bend with Milroe, what he could do. And so that was kind of hamstrung him a little bit. I thought they were going to be better at wide receiver. Yeah, we know Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams, but after that, they weren't very good at wide receiver. I think defensively, it took a little while to kind of get acclimated for the players to what they were doing. I think they made some adjustments midstream defensively, and I think that Kane Womack did a really good job, and that most of the staff there on the defensive side of the ball did a good job the second half of the season. So I think now that you have this under your belt, here's the big thing to me. All right, so Kalen DeBoer, you went 9-4. People aren't happy. Okay, there's reasons for the 9-4, like we discussed, but now the clock starts. What changes are you going to make? Do you make the changes that you need to make? Because now's the time to do it. This isn't Fresno State. This isn't Sioux Falls or whatever it's called. This isn't Montana State or whatever. You've got to make the strong decisions right now. So whatever changes you need to make, whether it's personnel, roster, management, staff, if you have some doubts, you better make those moves. So we're going to see. There's speculation here about Ryan Grubb coming back. I say coming back. He spent a week here or two or whatever. But there's talk about Ryan Grubb coming back. A lot of talk. And there's talk about some other changes that might be made. So we're going to see going into year two how he kind of manages everything. And, I want to say they're going to have a tough schedule next year. But I really don't know, because I don't even know who's going to be on those teams. So,
amen to that.
Yeah.
Rodney, but here's something that has not been discussed about Alabama. And we all understand, like, you go back to Nick Saban in 2007 and that transition to 2008, because in 2007, at the end, you had a lot of players playing for the name on the back. But the thing, as far as getting the attention of the players that's often overlooked, is this. Nick Saban had already won a national championship. He
Yeah.
already had one under his belt at LSU.
Right.
Kalen DeBoer doesn't have that yet. And these players know everything. They research. And so when the tough gets, when you really have to have your players' toughness show mentally and physically, you have those that will still be doubting, is this the right path? Is this now the right path for me? Should I go somewhere else? Because this guy hasn't won a national title. Yeah, he came close, but big deal. I won a ring. And that's the part that nobody's really bringing up yet. At what point does that message gets lost if you have an inconsistent staff as far as whatever that culture is supposed to be? Everybody understands there should be some changes in Tuscaloosa, but are you going to be that type? Knowing now you're at this level, this is where often when coaches make that one extra step up to a blue blood, or if you're making a step up from a group of 5 to an SEC school, they often fail because they're afraid to totally embrace what they have to do.
And
Yeah.
guys,
No.
this right here is why you never ever follow a legend. It is coaching suicide. Name the last coach that followed a legend in football that didn't get fired. So let's
Yeah.
go over who would you consider in our lifetime
Or
were
run
football
off.
legends? Well, man, let's do modern day. Urban Meyer. Who followed Urban Meyer?
Zook,
The
didn't he?
Zucker.
Zucker. Did he get fired?
No. Zucker followed Spurrier. Urban Meyer was followed by Will Muschamp.
Will
Okay.
Muschamp. Okay, and
You
then
got it
Spurrier.
right.
Yeah.
Spurrier. Who followed Spurrier?
The
Zook.
Zucker. Ron Zook.
He got fired.
Yeah.
Okay, who else would we consider legends in
Bobby
our area?
Bowden. Bobby
Bobby
Bowden.
Bowden. Who followed Bobby Bowden?
Jimbo Fisher,
Jimbo.
who was run
Who was
off.
about to get fired.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Here's
So
the thing. I think
any coaches, because what you're spelling out here is that about they already won a championship. Saban at LSU before he came to Alabama. All these factors is creating doubt when you follow a legend,
yes.
and so
Yeah,
it's just so hard. I mean,
it is.
it's impossible. I can't name a coach in any sport that follows a legend that didn't get fired. Not
Frank
only
Solich.
football, but any of them.
Yeah, look at
Well,
Frank Solich at Nebraska, Rodney.
yeah, and he did a good job. He was a good
He
coach.
did a good job. Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that go into it. There are all this stuff about following a legend, because I can tell you right now what's going on in Tuscaloosa. I've already heard it. Some of it's coming out of that building. This is why I say when you come in as a coach, you might have a transition year where you've got holdovers, but after that first year, I think you ought to start cleaning some of them holdovers out. Because guess what? They're going around. Well, that's not the way Coach Saban did it. Everybody doesn't do it the exact same way.
Right.
And the minute I can tell you this, you can say this about Kalen DeBoer, and it's magnified when you lose a game, everything's collapsing. This is Alabama football, okay? Everything is collapsing. All of a sudden, you start hearing rumors. You start hearing speculation. Everything's out of control. He's not doing it like Coach Saban. Okay, so I say that, but I'm going to take you back to 2015 when Nick Saban lost for the second year in a row to Ole Miss.
Oh,
I have never seen a week so tumultuous as that week. I mean, every Lane's doing this, Lane's doing that off the field, and he probably was. But he had been doing it all along. It's not like it just started. Okay. So, but because they lost, everything gets magnified. Every single thing. I never forget an Alabama assistant coach said that week they were getting ready to play Georgia. He said, we're coaching, and he was talking about the assistant coaches. We're coaching for our lives this week.
Yeah.
And they beat Georgia, and everything just kind of went from there. They won the national championship. But I say all that to say this. It's, when you don't talk about track record, there, because Kalen DeBoer here, people are kind of, comparing everything to Saban. Every single thing that happens that's not good, it just is magnified.
I mean, honestly, think about too, back to that conversation, bringing up Kalen DeBoer and, not talking about somebody that has won a national title. I mean, that list is very short. If you're not named Nick Saban, that list is short on the individuals who have won national titles who are still coaching.
There's what, 2 coaches still coaching? Let me say something real quick, guys, about one of our sponsors, and hopefully Yancy will be back with us. LandersFordMemphis.com, the number one Ford dealership in the Mid-South, open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department opens at 7, sales at 8. Go see our friend Brad Bellamy, the general manager out there. They'll walk you through the process. And I mean, it's a process and it's not complicated. They will find every way possible to get you in a new or used car, truck, or SUV. If you hadn't seen these Broncos riding around, like the Sasquatch package, the off-road package, with they drive like a car, but can handle anything on road or off road. If it ain't 4-wheel drive, you need it to be 4-wheel drive. If it's a truck or it's a Bronco, they've got Expeditions. They've got Explorers. They've got Ford Escapes. They have a huge inventory. Poplar and Houston Levy out in Collierville. They will deliver anywhere. I'm going to tell you something. They're involved, presenting sponsor of the Touchdown Club of Memphis, heavily involved with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that Danny Thomas founded downtown by the river. They're great folks, invested all over the Mid-South. We are so proud to be associated with them, have a sponsorship. Brad Bellamy comes on the show Fridays. The dude knows his football. And Kenny Myers is now out at Landers Ford in Collierville. Check him out, LandersFordMemphis.com. Again, if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. All right, Rodney, you made a great point about up until the season giving Kalen DeBoer an A. Do you and I mean, we're all about the same age. I think there are a lot of people in the world who use panic and fear and chaos as a way of controlling situations in their lives. You know, Franz Beard says, smart man he is. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always be what you've always been. My wife Audrey says, junk in your head, junk out. My dad says, boy, you got to be positive in the morning and positive in the day and positive in your sleep. That's the only way to survive. Rodney Orr, agree or disagree, or am I completely crazy?
No.
Honest.
I know you think you understood what I think I said, but I don't think you understand what I said is not what I meant. What?
I'm getting like Yogi Berra.
I need another coffee here on that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rodney, absorb that one.
Yeah, absorb that, Rodney.
I'm trying. I'm trying. No, I mean, I don't know exactly what you mean by. I mean, I think it's good to step back and, you know, again, you're talking about a mob mentality. You go to TigerInsider.com. I mean, it's the way people respond. I mean, it's amazing that the first reaction is always negative. I mean, it is. It's just negative, that everything's collapsing. And I think that's the one thing that, you know, again, I think all these coaches have to deal with. But no, I mean, it's going to be interesting to me to see DeBoer, what kind of moves he makes going into next season, how he implements, you know, what he wants to do now. You know, he's going to have a new quarterback. I think that probably right now it's Ty Simpson. I think there's got a lot of tools. This is Ty's opportunity. He's waited his turn. So we're going to start seeing this move more towards what Kalen DeBoer wants to do. And people also need to understand, too, that the game has changed a lot, too, since Nick Saban. Not only the NIL, the portal, I'm talking about the plays, the way teams, you know, run their systems and offenses and all of these types of things. You know, you're not going to just line up and physically beat people. Because you look at Kirby Smart, for example, and I think Kirby's the number one coach in college football right now. I still do.
I do too.
But I mean, you know, he's got the Nick Saban system, really, you know, and you watch him in teams that can have great receivers, quarterbacks, stuff like that. I mean, they're gonna light Kirby's defense up. I mean, heck, Jalen Milroe was 27 of 33 for nearly 400 yards against him. Okay, but I'm just saying that the game has changed a lot now, and I think we're going to see. So, like somebody said last night on TighterInsider.com, well, did we really want Ryan Grubb as the offensive coordinator? I mean, he throws the ball 55% of the time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think you have to adjust to the game, but you have, the personnel that you have and all of these types of things. I just, so it really what I'm saying is that the game has changed. It's just not the same. And I think Kalen DeBoer is more of a fit for kind of the current direction of college football. But you have to be patient and allow him to. And if you want to, you said positive, I said patient. You have to be patient and allow this guy to get his feet up under him. It's here, Rob. Let me say this too.
Yeah.
Listen, things had eroded a little bit under Nick Saban. That's not a criticism of Saban. He's not perfect, but times change, people change, circumstances change that change the way things are done. And I think some of the culture here at Alabama had started to erode away over the last 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, now you can't expect Kalen DeBoer to come in and wave a wand and everything changes instantly. I'm not saying the guy's going to do a great job, Rob and Johnny and Yancy. I'm not saying that. I don't know. But I think he's a good coach. He's got a great track record, and you got to give the guy time and got to be patient.
Yeah.
Rodney,
Yancy.
you bring up a good point because you can look at Nick Saban and you can consider him the greatest coach of all time. I still will make arguments for Bear Bryant, but there's times where high school coaches could have coached better than Nick Saban. If you're looking at Kirby Smart, and everybody agrees that he is the best coach right now in college football. If you take those final 2 minutes of the first half and the first minute of the second half, I mean, those both had decisions, especially the going into halftime like he did. That's the difference in the game. Now you're down by double digits in a game that, it didn't dictate for you to make to be that aggressive right then. Go into the locker room and play for the last 30 minutes. So,
Yancy, it actually dictated for you to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yancy, I want to ask you, I think y'all, this is important. I believe a couple of weeks ago before Christmas, Yancy said, am I correct? The Ole Miss Grove Collective, which is the big one, you had to play in the bowl game to get your NIL money. Is that true? Or is that, maybe I'm a little confused.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
So why is that not that? See, Yancy, I love that, and I don't understand. Well, I know why they're not doing it, because they're afraid they're not going to get that student athlete to come to their school and bypass another school. That should be in all of these contracts that they have, whether it's with Landers Ford or whoever they have their contracts with. It should be in there. You're going to lose X amount of dollars if you do not play in the bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ole Miss was blessed to have Walker Jones. That was head of Under Armour for over a decade, and this is exactly what he did before the NIL. So, they just were in a blessed situation. Is what happened with them, and you don't get paid if you don't play in the bowl, and so. It's a unique situation. That's why Ole Miss only had one opt out. But more importantly, the reason that Ole Miss played the way that they played is because one factor: Lane had put his mouth and put his name on the line during the whole bowl season, and bitched and moaned about not being included and about how the playoffs were picked. And if Ole Miss would have laid an egg like just about every other SEC team did, right, then he would have had a lot of egg on his face. So,
well, Yancy, I love what you just said. One Ole Miss player quit. That was it.
And it was not quit. He was it was Poopaw who just went into the draft, and he wanted to concentrate on the workouts, and everybody understands that. People will start tweaking. People will start learning about what the other collectives do at their schools to make sure they get everybody to perform and everybody to play. and there's a lot of tweaks, but I've enjoyed the bowls. I mean, I thought
I
they
do
were
too.
fascinating. I mean, this when you have young players at schools like Arkansas, the wide receiver that had maybe 3 career catches and he had 180 yards that game.
Yeah.
And boy, could that guy run, the wide receiver. I mean, it's where players are born, and you get to find out who you can rely on for next season, and plug in players that didn't have that that position during the season, and see what they can do. It really, I mean, I think they're fascinating. And yeah, I mean, look, the attendance, they wouldn't even show the top decks of the bowls because there was nobody there. I mean, I mean, even the Citrus Bowl with South Carolina, and they were probably the most excited fan base there was going into the bowl game, right?
Well,
Maybe Florida was right behind them, but
yeah.
they were really excited. And in the upper decks of the Citrus Bowl, it was so weird. I mean, they had a smattering of fans right there at the 50, and the rest of the upper decks were just completely empty. So there are problems, and they're going to have to tie in more bowl games into the playoffs. It needs to go to 16 teams. I would do away. I would all neutral field. I would not have any home games and tie in all the bowls. And you're getting, about 17 bowl games into just the playoffs. But there's room for the bowl games still, and I thought they were fascinating. I didn't have any problems with them, even with the opt outs. But back to what this perception with the SEC. And I'm going to tell you why it is. It's because of ESPN.
Yeah.
And if I don't know, if you watched the Ole Miss Duke game, but every
I did.
single possession they talked about the Duke quarterback not playing in the game. And so they were building an excuse. And I'm not just saying this because
were.
Ole Miss is who I was covered, but I'm just giving you an illustration, right? And so when you do that, you are building you are building propaganda, and they did that for all the bowl games. Do you think that they sat there and harped on all of the SEC teams and all their opt outs?
Well, look at Alabama
no.
and Michigan. They were
Did you hear
bragging
anything?
about
Did you hear-
Michigan and how Michigan was dominating Alabama, and it's like the field,
Not
as
one-
far as the
not one
average
mention.
possession was on the 22-yard line of Alabama.
Yeah.
How about give credit to Alabama's defense holding Michigan to under 100 yards at that point? It's like enough of this love for everybody else.
But
And
the
it's not-
SEC.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, let me
but
say
the
this.
SEC, and
Yeah.
and that's the problem. ESPN is literally controlling the narrative because fans don't know the rosters from other schools, especially out of conference, right?
Rodney, can
So
you,
when
do
you
you
have-
even you two cover, like you cover Ole Miss, Yancy, and Rodney, you cover Alabama. I mean, if you're looking at the roster and you know it right now, wait about another hour, and will you still know that roster? I mean, it's changing so much, and all these moving pieces. I hate it. I personally, it's like I don't know what a team. Usually, it's this time of year, what we can expect in the spring, what we can expect in the fall in 25. I have no idea because Yancy, you might be the best receiver. Rob, you may be the best quarterback, but maybe you two are not on the same page. So you're on my team. You're both are 5 stars, yet you can't get along with each other. So thus, you're not going to have W's. You better have some mental toughness experts on these campuses now. Yeah. Whatever you had before, double it, because you're trying to figure out a culture of a locker room. For the most part, these coaches don't even know what players are going to play at what position now.
They don't know who they are. Let me say this. Y'all, going back in the early and mid 80s, guys, y'all all remember the crowds at bowl games. They were pathetic. That was 40 years ago, and they really brought them back. I mean, the Liberty Bowl averages about 58,000 a year. That's Steve Earhart, Harold Grader, and the Liberty Bowl team. It's amazing. But I'll tell you what, putting those big banners, not showing the upper decks, reminds me of SEC basketball. Really, until not that long ago, when Mike Slive issued the mandate, the edict, we've got to get a better product for this SEC network coming along, but you'd have those blankets in the end zone at basketball arenas and covering up the upper deck, kind of like Reagan's speech in Berlin in 1987. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. It became tear down that blanket, let the crowds come in, or they shrunk the stadiums. It's changing. But Rodney, we talk about getting the bowls involved, and Yancy brought it up. I agree with that. That makes the bowls more valuable. And there's going to be some of these bowls that just need to be euthanized. Okay. They're there because ESPN, Rodney, needs
They
the
need programming.
inventory. They
They're
need
buying
programming and
programming.
inventory, and they can sell that sponsorship packages because they're going to be people laying around with a house full of relatives and in-laws and outlaws and everything in between that want to drink some cold beer and watch a game so they don't have to listen to everybody else. Rodney, answer? Yeah, agree?
Well, summarize that again, Rob. I cut out just a minute here.
Yeah,
And I
just
lost
saying
track.
that the ESPN's got to have the inventory for the bowl
Yeah.
game. They'll put anything up there with a pulse because they can sell the sponsorship package, and people are going to watch it because during the Christmas holidays and New Year's, people have housefuls of relatives,
Yeah.
and they just want to watch games, and it's
Every
kind of
month.
like an easy out.
Yeah.
Especially
No,
because they can bet on these games too.
Yeah, that's it, right? That's it.
Maybe
Yeah.
one day the state of Alabama will figure that part out, along with being able to buy lottery tickets. But
Yeah. I digress. Rodney.
Well, I mean, again, I think they need to. There's a lot of revamping that needs to be done. I mean, and you talk about that using the bowls and all of that. I mean, there's so much that needs to be done. And talking here to people in the athletic administration, they tell me, give us 2 years. Give us 2 years. Everybody's working on it. We're gonna restructure this and all of this, whether it's NIL, the portal. They've got to do something because it's like Johnny was saying, and I said it earlier. I don't know. I don't know who's going to play for who next year.
Yeah.
And I know Lane's eating this up. He's probably got one of the top portal classes in the country. But and then that's good. It works well for him. That really does work well for him. But I'll say this: I think Kalen DeBoer, kind of the direction he's going, is he wants to build this on recruiting and also if you can get the right players that are willing to, buy into the mindset of this is where I need to be. This is a system for me. This is a place for me, and then you supplement it with the portal.
Yeah.
That's really the way to try to build a program with consistency. Now, is that possible? I don't know. There's
But
a
here's
kid.
the problem, Rodney, that you're seeing this, especially with the Alabama players, where it's illegal to do it, but they're still doing it anyway. They're illegally, they're illegally coming after players who are not even in the portal. Hey, they're telling
no.
them,
The tampering. You're
tampering
100%. Look. It's just like you guys were talking about the bowls and people's bias against the SEC. Well, I mean, come on, man. You got skeleton of teams out there. How can you compare? Say the Big Ten's better when you got all these opt-outs and all this stuff. So that's just dumb.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes no sense. But I even lost track of where we were going here with this. But anyway, no, I mean, I think that the consistency of it, and you talk about the tampering, that's what you were mentioning. Look, if people couldn't see this 2 or 3 years before the portal was actually in place, I said on Tighter Insider TV, these coaching staff, they're going to have to hire a retention staff. Because what's going to happen is Blake Sims, who was recruited by Lane Kiffin, at Tennessee, when he goes to Alabama and he starts having some success, I'm just throwing this out there wildly. Then all of a sudden, you're going to have everybody that was connected to Blake, they're going to be reached out to. Hey, come here. You're sitting on the bench at Alabama. You could start here. This is what's going on. It's been going on. If you couldn't see that was coming, I mean, come on now. The way this recruiting is. But so, again, you talk about the culture. I would think about this really quickly. So Nick Saban would recruit all these classes, stack them on top of each other, and it would be like a revolving door. Trent Richardson would leave. Eddie Lacy stepped up. Eddie Lacy left. TJ Yeldon stepped up. TJ Yeldon left, and Derrick Henry steps up. I mean, it was just like one after the other, after the other, after the other. You can't do that anymore. You just simply can't do that anymore. And eventually it erodes the quality, not only of your team, but the whole college football, right? I mean, he does.
Look, this has only been 4 seasons, so it's not like there's really anybody is an expert. I mean, look at the situation where I went to school at Florida State. It looked like everything was great in place. Florida State was in a position to play for a national championship. Their starting quarterback goes out against North Alabama. So then you're still using that same system, except when it fails you. So it's great that you can recruit well, and it's great that you can get the best players from the transfer portal. But if you mess up in any of those, like the transfer portal, look at what happened to Florida State. And see, that's the part of this that you got to look at long term. You can't look at, what happened this year or next year. It's over these 3 or 4 year periods that we're still learning what all this is about.
Let me say this real quick about Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. It's right outside of Memphis in Shelby County. Just go out Poplar. It's easy to get to. They have the best selection of men's and women's boots, great looking boots. They also have those Danner boots and trail shoes, Barber, Filson, STS. Man, that's good looking gear and luggage. Great looking women's clothes. Great selection of cowboy hats for men and women. Man, Brendan's got a couple of them. We sent him. We'll get him another one here for him. He is a cowboy. He lives in cowboy country of Florida, by the way, Ocala. They're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Get out there. Let them know you heard about them on Sidelines. We love these folks out there. Charles Hall and his family, his wife Laura, Raven Carpenter, J.M. Squidward. Eli's his real name. But if you're looking to get something for somebody for a gift, you want to get your wife something, your girlfriend, just ask for Raven Carpenter, man. I walk in there, she'll pick out 2 or 3 things every time for Audrey. Boots, dresses, jackets, they've got you all. HewlettandDunn.com. Guys, there's something Ken Capps, one of our friends, was on yesterday out in Dallas. Football Writers Association of America just sent me a story about Quinn Ewers and the Texas mysterious $6 million offer for him to enter the portal. And it's the title is Tampering at an All-Time High. Okay, we're going to wrap it up, guys. Yancy Porter, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, Johnny Ballpark Franks on the ump Monday nights, 5 to 7 p.m. in Huntsville. Executive producer Brendan Martin. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the world, and we got the smartest guests on this show. I cannot thank y'all enough for the input and the insight. And I know sometimes I do a lot of brain scrambling with my questions, Rodney. Rodney's, you weren't trying to drive and answer those questions at the same time, were you?
Oh, no.
You'd have to pull over to Taco Casa in the parking lot, something like that. But just do this for us, guys. Give us a retweet, put it out there, and let us know what we can do to help your brand. And all of you watching, you need to follow these guys, man. They ain't afraid to tell the truth. So anybody's closing comments, say them, and we'll say goodbye.
Go Fighting Irish. That's all I got.
Yeah. Rodney, what about you?
The funny thing is I picked Georgia to beat Texas in the SEC championship game.
Right.
And I picked Texas. This is my preliminary pick. I hope this doesn't happen. I picked Texas to come back and win the national championship. My sleeper team was Notre Dame. Okay. That was my sleeper team. Now both those teams are in the Final Four. I'm picking Ohio State. I think that's an obvious pick.
Yeah.
And that's why they will not win, is because it is the obvious pick.
Probably so.
Yeah, and I want Texas for the SEC. And Yancy.
No, Rob, you do not ever want Texas. Okay.
I know we'll never hear the end of it. My Arkansas friends are like, Rob, you don't know what it's like. It's going to be like having your brother lives in the same room with you, win a state championship, and you're on the other team and they beat you. It'll be horrible. Yeah. I mean,
see, Rob, that's why it's funny. Everybody's pulling, and for most Alabama fans, they're pulling for Notre Dame, a team they've hated for decades, because they look at Texas, Penn State, Ohio State. You can't pull for them if you're a Bama fan. So go Fighting Irish.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Hey, folks, we're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.